guys, I will talk about the biology and its field of action. What is biology? It studies the interaction between living beings, either cooperative and aggressive between them. The interactions between these systems are the subject of the studies of ecology. Now I will talk about branches of biology. The first one is anatomy, a study of the structure and relationship between body parts. Anthropology studies the biocultural prehistory almost to understand human nature. Botany studies of plants. Embryology studies the paternal development of babies. Biomedicine is the cornerstone of modern health care and laboratory diagnostic. Biochemistry studies of the chemical substance and vital process occurring in the living organisms. Cytology studies of cells. Genetics studies of genes. Histology studies of microscopes, structure of cells and tissues. Immunology studies charge, measures, and contextualize the psychological function of the immune system. Virology studies virus and virus-like agents, including their taxonomy. Zoology studies of animals and their behavior. This comprehensive science studies life from different standpoints. Biology has allowed us to know the composition of the material that passes the genetic information from one living being to another. This evolution started with the prevalence of archaea, bacteria, and eukarya. How did life originate on the planet? For centuries, it was believed that the supreme being created life spontaneously, but some are considering that electrical activity in the atmosphere originated life. Others suggested that the creation of life occurred in the volcanoes or the bottom of the oceans and arrived being transported by meteorites or comets. Is that everything that has previously happened gave rise to the system based on the DNA and RNA. DNA is the acid in the chromosomes in the center of the cells of living things. RNA is the complex compound of high molecular weight that functions in a cellular protein. We have not seen the end of this story yet, and that is why it's relevant to continue looking for the answer to this question: how did life originate on the planet?
Hello, my name is Arturo and I'm going to talk about the characteristics of living things and the difference between eukaryotic and prokaryotic cells. There are 8 common characteristics in the living things and I'm going to give you a brief explanation of each one. Number 1. Organization. Life on Earth is characterized by the organization in levels in which the lower ones give substance to the superiors and nothing can exist or function without this complex system. Number 2. Genetic code is a sequence of nitrogenous bases that combine produce words in a universal language to understand the living beings. Number 3. Response to stimuli. Living things can respond to different stimuli like temperature, light, among others. Number 4. Homeostasis. Homeostasis refers to the set of cell regulation phenomena in the living beings. Number 5. Metabolism. Living things use energy to maintain homeostasis, and the energy comes from components that living things take from the environment. Number 6. Growth. This is the easier to understand. The living things increase their volume. Number 7. Reproduction. Living things transmit their information, the DNA, to perpetuate the species. And finally, the number 8. Adaptation ability. The world changes and the living things are forced to adapt or die. There are 2 types of cell. In one side we have prokaryotic cell, which can be divided in archaebacteria, which is a bacteria that lives in similar conditions to ours, and the bacteria that lives in extreme conditions. The prokaryotic cell is unicellular and doesn't have organelles, and it's like a little mess in comparison with the eukaryotic cell that is more complex. Eukaryotic cell can be found in multicellular organisms such as animals, plants, fungi, etc. The eukaryotic cell can be pluricellular, but it can be unicellular too, like in the protozoaries because are unicellular but also are eukaryotic cells. Both prokaryotic and eukaryotic have DNA and ribosomes.
The history of the microscope. The observation of the world of tiny things began with the invention of the magnificent lenses, which are a very rudimentary version of the microscope, and now are known as the composite microscope because it combines more than one magnificent glass to see objects and shows them in increased sizes. The first person who named this invention as the microscope was Giovanni Faber in 1625. Historical evidence points to Zacharias Janssen as the most likely author, or inventor in this case, since he worked with his father and both were engaged in making glasses. He had the idea of combining two lenses inserted at the ends of a tube and realized that combining the lenses in this way, he obtained a greater magnification range than with one glass. The cell and cell theory. The official history begins with Robert Hooke, who in 1665 published the observations he made with the microscope he created. He observed the bark of cork oak and noticed that its tissue was made of a small space which repeated themselves, like the cells of a honeycomb, and he gave to these spaces the name as cells. Anton van Leeuwenhoek, with the lens he has created, observed and described in more details the cells such as spermatozoa and protozoa, and even with some bacteria. Robert Brown discovered in the nucleus in plant cells and in 1831. Johannes Evangelista Purkinje identified the mitochondria in 1867. Many researchers participated indirectly to generate the postulates of the cell theory like Theodor Schwann, Matthias Schleiden, and Rudolf Virchow. There are four postulates of the cell theory. The cell is the morphological and structural unit of all living beings. Every cell comes from a pre-existing cell. The cell is the physiological unit of life, and the cell contains the hereditary information for the control of its development, growth, reproduction, and to transmit this information to the next generation. And finally, we can add a fifth postulate: the disease begins in the cell. If the structure of the cells is healthy, the individual is healthy. But should the cell lose its health, there will be a disease. The cell's transportations. All the cells need the nutrients to carry out the metabolic activities. The transportation can be classified according with the amount of molecules that pass through the membrane. If they are one by one, the classification can be active or passive. The active transportation spends energy and is again gradients from low to high concentrations. In the passive transportation doesn't waste energy and is in favor of the gradient from high to low concentration, and it can be in the simple diffusion and facilitated diffusion. In the simple diffusion, the molecules cross the lipid layer, thin polar membrane made of two layers of lipid molecules. In the facilitated diffusion, the passage of molecules depends on the presence of proteins that allows this passage. If the transportation through the membrane is massive, then it's classified in endocytosis and exocytosis. The endocytosis means in the incorporation of material into the cell, and the exocytosis is the secretion of the material produced by the cells. The levels of organization. The components that make up living things and living beings are in a complex organization. The first level is the atom, which forms molecules and biomolecules. The second level is the molecule, which forms organelles and structures. The third level is the cell, which is the functional unit of life formed by organelles. The fourth level are the organelles, which are the different structures contained in the cytoplasm of the cell, mainly eukaryotes, which have a certain shape. The fifth level is the tissue, which is a set of cells with a specific function. The sixth and seventh levels are the organs, the group of tissues with a specific function, and the organ system, which is the set of organs that work together to fulfill a necessity. The eighth level is the individual, the being alive, animal or vegetal, considered independent from the others, and the population, which is when the species, the same individuals from a species, comes together and coexist. The 10th and 11th levels are the community, the set of population, and the ecosystem, which is the grouping of the population with the abiotic and anabiotic factors and the physical environment. And the 12th and last level is the biosphere, which is the set of ecosystems on the earth.
Our systems. There are 12 organ systems. These are cardiovascular, lymphatic, digestive, endocrine, alimentary, muscular, nervous, ocular, respiratory, skeletal, urinary, and immune. Cardiovascular system transports oxygen, nutrients, and other substances to the cell, removes waste and CO2 and other substances from the cells, and also helps stabilize body temperature and pH. It is composed by the heart, blood, and blood vessels. Lymphatic. In the defense of the body against infection and diseases, it transfers lymph between the tissue and the bloodstream. It's composed by the lymph nodes, and lymphatic vessels. The oxygen of the body's lymph, let me explain. According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, it is a usually clear, coagulable fluid that passes from the intestinal and lymphatic system. Defends the body against infection and diseases. It transfers lymph between the tissue and the bloodstream. It's composed by the lymph nodes, and lymphatic vessels. Digestive system processes foods and absorbs nutrients, minerals, vitamins, and water. It's composed by the mouth, salivary glands, esophagus, stomach, liver, gallbladder, exocrine pancreas, small intestine, and large intestine. Endocrine system provides communication between the body through hormones. It regulates long-term changes in other organ systems to maintain homeostasis. The pituitary and pineal glands, thyroid, parathyroid, endocrine pancreas, renal testicles, and other composite system. Endocrine system provides protection against injuries and loss of fluids, as well as physical defenses against infection and microorganisms. But also participates in nutrition control. This one is composed by skin, hair, and nails. Muscular system provides movement, support, and hair protection. The one needs the skeleton and cardiac structures, also smooth muscles. Nervous collects, transfers, and presents information between past, internal, and external changes. It is administered by the brain, spinal cord, nerves, and sensory organs. Between ears, eyes, tongue, skin, and nose. Reproductive system provides gametes, aka sex cells, and the sexual hormones. The ultimate goal of the system is to produce offspring. It is integrated by the fallopian tubes, uterus, vagina, ovaries, and mammary glands in women. And men, it is integrated by the testicle, pandiferens, seminal vesicles, prostate, and penis. The respiratory system delivers air to specific issues, change occurs. It is composed by the mouth, nose, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, lungs, and diaphragm. Skeletal system supports and protects soft tissues of the body, provides movement in joints, produces blood cells, and neurons. The bones, cartilage, tendons, and ligaments integrate this blood. Urinary system eliminates excess water, salts, and waste products of body and blood. It also helps to control the pH, the kidneys, ureters, bladder, and the ureter composite system. Immune system defends against microbiological pathogens and other diseases. It is composed by the leukocytes, tonsils, lymph nodes, thymus, and spleen. I mentioned homeostasis before, so I will explain it. Let's start with a bit of history. Philip Bernard observed the stability of physiological parameters such as body temperature, heart rate, and blood pressure. And in 1865, he wrote, all the biomechanisms, varied as they are, have only one objective: to preserve constant the internal environment. In 1928, Walter B. Cannon coined the term homeostasis to describe and define the relation of the internal environment.
Welcome, guys! Today it's a very important day, because we will interview a really important person. Hi, I'm really excited that you are still with us today. You are a very important scientist in your field, and I want to say I'm a very big fan from you. But this is not the point of the program. Today we will talk about health and sickness. Well, first, can you describe us what is sickness? Well, sickness, how you must know, is when you feel bad, when you feel wrong, but more scientifically, sickness is when you break homeostasis. What is homeostasis, are you asking in your mind? Well, homeostasis is like the equilibrium of all the organism that everybody has, for the fact that it is alive, and when this homeostasis, this equilibrium of the systems of the world by itself, well, creates the state of sickness. Well, a person in Twitter asked us, what do you think about the health in adolescence? I think it's a really interesting topic. What do you think?
Well, I think that it's a very important topic that it's important to talk. And first, I need to say that there's a lot of risks that adolescents have in his lives. For example, the behavior risks that are factors that are related to actions of individual choices, like consumption of harmful substances or junk foods, like drugs, having unprotected sex, or something like that. The psychosocial risk factors that are those that involve the body and biology, such as overweight, obesity, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, or deficient metabolism, the alcohol in the body. There also we have the demographic risk factors that are shared with the population in general, such as age, gender, population subgroups, religion, and the territory in which they live, how the name says, and the environment risk factors that include social, economic, cultural, political, physical, chemical, and biological issues. For example, not having access to clean water, not having sanitary facilities, the occupational hazards, air pollution, etc., etc. Also, the risk factors are very important. The genetic risks that are factors to depend mainly on individual genetics. Its importance lies in the fact that some diseases have their origin in genes.
Well, at last, what do you think that we need to do to have a well lifestyle, a good lifestyle? Well, I think that it is like everybody knows, like just have a good diet, eat vegetables, have an equilibrium diet between vegetables, proteins, carbohydrates. I think that it's the key of conserve a healthy life, but also do exercise. Be more active. An active adolescence is a healthy adolescence, in my opinion. Today we have a lot of help in all the areas of where a disease can attack us. So I think that an adolescent have a lot of help. So that's my opinion about the healthy lifestyle.
Well, that's all. Thanks for being with us. Have a nice day.